Evil rarely marches under a single banner. Among the ranks of the Abyss are countless lords and ladies, each one a sovereign of some pocket of chaos and malevolence, each one aching to supplant their rivals and claim the title of Prince of Demons. Even the creature who currently bears that title, Demogorgon, is not immune to challenges from within and without. His twin heads whisper different desires into a single body, and his every movement ripples across the lower planes. Opposing him in a war as strange as it is terrifying is the demon queen of fungi, Zuggtmoy. To mortals she seems an amorphous mass of mold and mushroom, a blooming rot that takes hold of living minds and slowly decays them into thralls. Before I move forward, we are counting on you to support our channel by clicking that tiny subscribe button so that we can bring more of these amazing legends and lore to life. Thank you. In her own layer of the Abyss, she orchestrates spores, networks of mycelium, and forests of parasitic growths that devour anything foolish enough to trespass. An abyss is not just a place, it is an idea, a vortex of impulses in which every foul thought and vile ambition can manifest. The abyss is chaos in its purest form, unlimited by law, unbound by coherence. While devils of the 9 hells refine their cruelty and organize their malice, demons embody destruction, randomness, and impulse. They tear down what others build simply because they can. They mock creation by mutating it into forms that twist the minds of those who witness them. Yet, within this maelstrom, there are certain patterns. There are demon lords, the so-called princes and queens who have carved dominion out of the madness, shaping entire layers of the abyss to reflect their twisted imaginations. One of the most infamous among them is Demogorgon, whose domain, known as the Gaping Maw, is a nightmare of tangled jungles, fetid swamps, and monstrous beasts. He is known as the Prince of Demons because he is considered the most powerful, the most cunning, and the most terrifying of his kind. His 2 heads, each with its own name and personality, constantly vie for supremacy over their shared body. Far from the tides that batter Demogorgon's domain is Tentacle, a layer of the abyss whose surface is covered in dense mats of fungi and mold. Here, Zuggtmoy rules as the demon queen of fungi. She has no strict form. She is a conglomeration of fungal growths and spores. To some, she appears as a grand fungal mat, pulsating with life and death. To others, she manifests as a humanoid figure, cloaked in robes made of mycelium, her face a collage of mushrooms. Her presence is accompanied by a sweet, intoxicating scent that carries lethal spores capable of hijacking a creature's mind. It is from the heart of these 2 dominions that our war begins. But to understand why such a conflict would erupt between these lords, we must delve deeper into who they are and how their ambitions collide. Demogorgon is not simply a demon lord. He is a study in contradictions. He is an enormous creature with 2 heads, Armel and Hethradia. Each head speaks with a different voice, and each one sees the world through different eyes. Armel is cunning, methodical, and subtle, preferring manipulation and schemes that span centuries. Hethradia is violent, impatient, and direct. Their joint existence is not harmonious. They constantly argue, plotting to kill each other while being bound in the same body. This internal strife is the source of Demogorgon's madness. He is at once a singular being and a pair of beings locked in endless conflict. Demogorgon's body is monstrous. He has 2 muscular arms that end in clawed hands and 2 tentacles instead of a head's arms. His torsos are covered in scales. His lower body resembles that of a gigantic reptilian creature, with a scaled tail that drags behind him. Each of his heads is crowned with horns and features mandibles more akin to those of a monstrous sea predator than to anything land-bound. His eyes are pools of darkness, capable of hypnotizing the weak-willed. He inspires fear not only because of his size and strength, but because his two heads can never quite agree, making him unpredictable. Within the gaping maw, Demogorgon is worshipped by lizard folk, Yuan-Ti, serpent cultists, and troglodytes. He is particularly revered by creatures that fear the sea and the unknown. The layer's environment reflects his dichotomous nature. There are thick jungles teeming with life, where monstrous apes and dinosaurs rove with primal fury. There are also dark swamps, where the water is black and the air is thick with insect noise. Amid this chaotic landscape are hidden temples dedicated to him and his twin philosophies. Amel's followers prefer to study in these temples, building cults that pull strings in mortal realms. Hethrodya's followers prefer direct slaughter, and they revel in battle for its own sake. His title as the Prince of Demons was not given, but taken. He fought countless rivals, Grazist, Orcus, Yanogu, and even improbable cosmic threats that mortals cannot name. With each victory, his legend grew, but so did the whispers of discontent. The Abyss does not abide a single ruler for long. His two heads may command endless legions of abyssal beasts, but there is always someone ready to challenge him. And within his own mind, he is never truly at peace. Amel would rather leave the Abyss and conquer the mortal world through subtle infiltration. Hethrodya desires to fight the blood war, to march against the devils of Bator, to claim territory through violence. The tension between these desires is the core of Demogorgon's identity. It is said that when Demogorgon roars, entire sections of the Abyss tremble. When he dreams, feverish hallucinations plague those who are susceptible to madness. He is worshipped not just as a force, but as an embodiment of chaos within chaos. Those who seek him do not expect mercy. They seek the strength to survive in a world that will devour them. If Demogorgon personifies chaotic madness, Zuggtmoy embodies relentless, creeping decay. She is the demon queen of fungi, and she rules over Shedakla, a layer that appears as a vast, humid forest of giant mushrooms and lichen-encrusted trees. The air here is thick with spores. They float like pollen, invisible to the eye but quick to attach themselves to those who breathe them in. These spores begin the process of infection, merging with the host's biology and slowly converting them into something else. A fungal servant in thrall to Zuggtmoy's will. In many depictions, Zuggtmoy does not have a single form. Sometimes she is shown as a towering fungal pillar, sprouting cap after cap of colorful mushrooms, each one releasing clouds of spores that shimmer like dust in sunlight. At other times, she is depicted as a slender humanoid figure with a regal bearing, cloaked in robes woven from mycelial threads. Her features hint at the shape of a face, but where eyes should be are clusters of luminescent fungus. Her arms split into tendrils that can weave through cracks, and her legs root themselves into the ground when she stands still for long enough. Her movements are hypnotic, slow and graceful like that of a dancer, lulling those who watch into complacency before she consumes them. Zuggtmoy's goals have always been different from those of other demon lords. She does not seek to conquer through armies of tooth and claw. She seeks to infiltrate and convert. Her spores travel far beyond the Abyss, riding on winds, attaching themselves to traveling adventurers, and finding cracks in planar boundaries. When a spore finds fertile ground, it sprouts and begins to send messages back to its queen. These messages come in whispers that echo through the soil and stone, carrying information about the location's potential for colonization. A city may be built over an ancient buried spore. A temple's cellar may hide a patch of mold that glows faintly with an otherworldly light. In each case, Zuggtmoy is patient. She allows her spores to grow slowly, establishing a network that she can call upon when the time is right. Those who become her servants do not always realize it at first. A farmer breathes in a spore and begins to feel fatigued. He seeks rest in his barn and falls asleep. During the night, his body grows stiff as mycelial threads thread themselves through his muscles. He wakes up and goes about his day, but finds his thoughts drawn to mushrooms. He eats mushrooms. He smells mushrooms. He starts to plant them in the fields. He persuades others to do the same. In time, his body will be covered in fungal blooms that release spores into the air, infecting those around him. By the time the village notices, it is too late. The entire community is part of the fungal network that answers to Zuggtmoy. While she is a demon lord, and thus part of the Abyss's chaotic hierarchy, Zuggtmoy often interacts with the material plane in subtle ways. She has established cults among myconids, intelligent mushroom folk, who see her as a goddess. She entices scholars who study fungi with dreams of knowledge. She whispers to those who feel slighted by human society, promising a place in her network where they will be appreciated. Her offers are insidious because they appeal to the desire for belonging. Once someone joins her, leaving becomes almost impossible without assistance from powerful divine forces. Zuggtmoy's lair is not just a place, but an organism. Every fungus, every toadstool, every creeping mold is part of her. If the gaping maw is a jungle with all sorts of beasts fighting for survival, Tentacle is a singular creature spreading slowly across its environment. This fundamental difference in their domains is also a difference in their outlook. Demogorgon is chaos within chaos. Zuggtmoy is slow, patient, methodical rot. Why would Demogorgon and Zuggtmoy go to war? They are both demons, both dedicated to chaos and ruin. At first glance, their goals seem to exist in parallel, not in opposition. Demogorgon revels in destruction for its own sake, in the thrill of ripping down whatever stands in his way. Zuggtmoy wants to spread her fungal empire across the multiverse. They are different, but they could ignore each other forever. Yet in the Abyss, neutrality is fragile. Any difference can spark conflict when the potential for territory or status is at stake. The initial spark of this war was not a grand insult delivered by one lord to another, but a small spore carried on a breeze. According to one legend, a swamp in the gaping maw, deep and dark with stagnant water, sprouted a single patch of luminous fungus. The spores of this fungus were not native to Demogorgon's lair. They came from Tentacle. It is said that when Zuggtmoy sent these spores, she did not intend to insult Demogorgon. She wanted to test whether her fungi could survive in his domain. She did not realize that the swamp in question was considered sacred to Amel, one of Demogorgon's heads. When the first fungal bloom took root, a group of cultists dedicated to Amel saw it as a sign of contamination. They attempted to burn it out, but the spores had already spread. Within a week, other patches of fungus had started to appear. By the second week, troglodytes reported seeing strange mushroom creatures near their lairs. Demogorgon discovered the incursion when his two heads noticed different things. Amel saw it as a threat to his domain. Hethradia dismissed it as trivial. In their disagreement, a violent argument erupted. Amel insisted on retaliation to scour the invading growths from the gaping maw. Hethradia argued that burning a few mushrooms was beneath their notice, that their energies were better spent on attacking mortals or fighting Grazist. The conflict reached such a pitch that Demogorgon raged. Through his lair, smashing temples and killing his own followers in fits of anger. In the end, he ordered a contingent of Mariliths and Hezrus to burn out the fungus and send a message to Shadakla. That message was not well received. To the demon queen of fungi, the destruction of her spores was an affront. She responded by sending not a legion of demons, but an invisible wave of spores carried by gusts of abyssal wind into the gaping maw. These spores settled into more swamps, more wetlands, and even the roots of the great trees that Demogorgon's followers used as watchtowers. Soon, more patches of fungus appeared. They were in the temples, on the altars, and even on the hides of lesser demons. The war had begun not with armies, but with an invasive species. The second catalyst came when an ambitious cult leader on the material plane sought to play both sides. A scholar in a forgotten library discovered a treatise on the relationships between demon lords. This person, their name lost to history, believed they could bargain with both Demogorgon and Zuggtmoy, offering their soul in exchange for power and knowledge. They constructed a summoning circle and invoked Demogorgon. They promised him a ritual that would transport a small portion of the gaping maw to the material plane, where Demogorgon's influence would grow. In return, the scholar wanted knowledge and a guarantee of their life. Unbeknownst to Demogorgon, the circle was inscribed with Zuggtmoy's sigils. When he appeared, the room was filled with spores. The scholar inhaled them and became Zuggtmoy's puppet. Through the scholar, Zuggtmoy spoke to Demogorgon. She mocked him for falling into such an obvious trap. She told him that she would spread across his jungles whether he liked it or not. In a fit of rage, Demogorgon attempted to destroy the scholar's soul on the spot, but Zuggtmoy whisked it away, taking it into the abyss and planting it within a fungal bloom that whispered the scholar's regrets. This event convinced Demogorgon's two heads that Zuggtmoy must be crushed, but they still could not agree on how to proceed. Amel wanted a surgical strike. Hethradia wanted open war. Demogorgon's first major assault on Shadakla was not a grand invasion, but a series of probing attacks. He dispatched Vrox and Hezrus to cut down fungal stalks, to burn mushroom groves, and to seek out Zuggtmoy's primary form. Amel instructed them to capture any creatures that could speak with her voice. Hethradia simply wanted to see her suffer. But Shadakla is not like the gaping maw. It is not an arena where warriors can march in formation. It is a labyrinth of fungal growths that shift and reform. Paths that appear solid crumble underfoot. Bridges made of mycelial threads collapse, and then regrow behind the intruders, trapping them in loops. The air is thick with spores that, when inhaled, cause hallucinations and disorientation. The first wave of Demogorgon's forces stumbled blindly into a series of traps. Vrox found themselves stepping on puffball mushrooms that exploded in clouds of hallucinogenic spores. They saw visions of their mother demons tearing off their wings and feeding them to Hezrus. Hezrus attempted to use their brute strength to smash fungal pillars, but the pillars absorbed the blows and released spores that congealed around them, forming cocoons. When these cocoons burst, they revealed creatures that resembled Hezrus, but were covered in fungus, loyal to Zuggtmoy and nothing else. Only a few of Demogorgon's demons returned to the gaping maw, and those who did were infected. They coughed spores onto their comrades, and within days, small patches of fungus had appeared in unexpected places. Hethradia saw this as proof that she needed to be destroyed through fire. He ordered a second wave, this time comprised of Balers and Mariliths. These were more intelligent and more dangerous than Vrox. They brought with them abyssal flames that could not be extinguished by mere water. They burned swaths through the mushroom forests, carving out clearings and killing countless spores. They found shrines where myconids performed rituals to their queen. They desecrated these shrines, scattering the spores into the wind. But as they advanced deeper into the lair, the mushrooms grew larger and more bizarre. They encountered fungus that could talk, that could spit acid, that could emit sonic pulses. They saw fungal creatures that resembled skeletal dragons, covered in mushrooms, with eyes that glowed with an inner light. Finally, they reached a clearing where the ground was covered in a thick mat of white fungus. It pulsed with life, and as the demons advanced, it receded. A figure rose from the center. She was tall, her arms as long as the trunks of the mushrooms around her. Her face was a mask of mushrooms, her eyes glowing with green fire. Her head was crowned by a cluster of caps that released spores every time she moved. It was Zuggtmoy. Her voice resonated not just through the air, but through the ground beneath the demon's feet. "You destroy what you do not understand," she said. "You think fire will consume me. You think your blades will cut me. I am older than your rage. I am patience." The bailer at the front answered by swinging its whip. The whip wrapped around Zuggtmoy's arm, burning it. She shrieked, and the shriek caused every mushroom within a mile to release spores. The air turned into a thick fog. The demons' vision blurred. They heard whispers telling them to drop their weapons and rest. "You are tired," the whispers said. "You have fought for so long. Lay down among the mushrooms and breathe. I will take care of you." Some of the demons obeyed. They lay down and died, their bodies consumed by fungus that sprouted from their orifices. Others tried to fight on, but found that their blades cut nothing but air. Zuggtmoy faded away, only to reappear behind them. In this first direct confrontation, no decisive blow was struck by either side. Demogorgon's forces retreated, dragging a few unconscious comrades with them. Zuggtmoy allowed them to leave. She knew that the spores they carried would return to the gaping maw and begin the process of colonization anew. She believed that she could win, not through open battle but through infiltration, letting the spores spread inside Demogorgon's territory and eventually undermine him from within. Back in the gaping maw, the atmosphere changed. Travelers in the jungles reported hearing whispers in their heads, telling them to look down, to see the beauty of the mushrooms growing at their feet. Cultists of Demogorgon began to see mushrooms in their dreams, mushrooms that promised them power if they would only betray their master. At first, Amel saw this as a test. He took it as an opportunity to weed out disloyal followers. He called the whispers a challenge to his followers' faith. Hethrodaya, meanwhile, saw signs that the spores were spreading too quickly. He saw his temples being overrun by fungus. He saw demons coughing spores onto their food. One day, a patch of fungus sprouted on the altar of a temple dedicated to Demogorgon. The priest, a Marilith with 6 arms, attempted to cut it away. When her sword sliced into the fungus, it released spores that flew into her face. She coughed and fell to her knees. She saw visions of a world covered in mushroom forests, where the sky glowed green and every creature was connected by threads of mycelium. It was beautiful to her. She felt the call of Zuggtmoy. When she returned to her senses, her arms reached out not to cut the fungus, but to touch it lovingly. Demogorgon himself felt her treachery through his connection to his followers. His 2 heads screamed in unison, and he ordered her execution. She was burned alive, but the spores in her body survived, carried away by the wind. Those spores found new hosts. In response to this silent invasion, Demogorgon decided to change tactics. Rather than send demons into Shadakla, he began pulling pieces of Shadakla into the gaping maw through dark rituals. He created rifts between the layers. Through these rifts, he attempted to suck the life out of Zuggtmoy's domain. But she sensed these rifts and sent spores along them, turning them into pipelines of infestation. The more he tried to draw energy, the more spores he inhaled. Hethrodya realized that his anger was being used against him. He wanted to destroy the rifts entirely, while Aemil, ever the plotter, saw an opportunity. Aemil's plan was insidious. He suggested using the rifts to send his own corrupting force into Shadakla, madness itself. He conjured a series of rituals to draw essence from the minds of mortals who worshipped him. He collected their fears, their nightmares, their screams. He distilled these into a psychic poison he called the Mindrot. He then sent this essence through the rifts into the fungal forests, hoping that it would infect the mycelial network and drive Zuggtmoy insane. If he could twist her mind as his own was twisted, maybe she would lose control of her domain. The Mindrot moved through the fungal network like a plague. It whispered voices of its own that were different from Zuggtmoy's whispers. It told mushrooms to sprout at odd angles. It told spores to germinate before they were ready. It caused the mycelium to knot itself. Zuggtmoy felt the sickness. She experienced hallucinations of her own domain decaying without reason. She became paranoid, seeing threats everywhere. For the first time, she felt fear. She realized that Demogorgon was not just a brute. He was cunning. He understood that in a war between patient decay and chaotic madness, he could turn his madness into a weapon. Zuggtmoy responded in two ways. First, she withdrew parts of her consciousness from the Mindrot-infected areas, cutting them off like a gardener pruning a diseased branch. In doing so, she sacrificed sections of her domain, letting mushrooms wither and die so that the mind rot could not spread. Second, she reached out to mortals. She whispered into the minds of those who had once inhaled her spores and then been cured. These individuals possessed antibodies of a sort, psychic resistance to her influence. She called them back to her service, offering them power if they would help her cut away the mind rot. On the material plane, strange cults dedicated to Zuggtmoy began to sprout in remote corners. In one kingdom, a group of farmers began to gather in caves to meditate and chant to the fungal queen. In another, a circle of druids insisted that mushrooms were sacred and should be allowed to overtake farmland. In each case, these mortals felt a call from beyond, telling them to spread the fungus and cut away anything that opposed it. Some of these cultists received dreams that depicted a monstrous creature with two heads that sought to infect them with madness. They saw themselves cutting into the creature's body, pulling out its minds like roots from the soil. As this contest of spores and madness continued, both sides began to realize that the war could not be won through infiltration alone. They needed allies. They needed armies. And so, each demon lord looked beyond their own domain for help. Demogorgon began to court other demon lords, promising them spoils if they joined the fight against Zuggtmoy. He turned to Yenogu, the Knoll Prince, offering him parts of Shadakla to turn into hunting grounds. He turned to Baphomet, the Horned King, promising labyrinths within the fungal layer. Most of these lords refused. They saw no advantage in helping Demogorgon. Some secretly hoped that if Demogorgon fell, they could claim his title. Zuggtmoy, on the other hand, turned to the demon lord Jublex, the Faceless Lord, sometimes called the Ooze Lord. Jublex is a creature of slime and filth, a being composed entirely of acid and ooze. He is not known for strategy. He is known for consuming anything he touches. Zuggtmoy found common ground with him because both of their domains dealt with consumption and decay. She promised him parts of the gaping maw to dissolve into acid if he would help her. Jueblex agreed, not because he understood her motives, but because he desired to consume. Thus, the alliances were drawn. Demogorgon aligned himself only with his own followers and some opportunistic demons. Zuggtmoy aligned with Jueblex and her network of cultists. While demons fought demons, mortals on the material plane felt tremors that they could not explain. Adventurers exploring ancient ruins discovered strange symbols carved into stone, symbols of two monstrous heads and a mushroom crown. Villagers woke up to find their fields overrun with mushrooms that glowed in the moonlight. Clerics felt their prayers go unanswered or redirected. Some of them had visions of an endless jungle where a two-headed monster screamed and a fungal queen laughed. In the city of Siskar, an ancient metropolis built on ruins older than history, a group of adventurers gathered in a tavern. They were a diverse group: a wizard who had studied the abyss, a ranger who had fought demons before, a cleric of a god of light, a rogue who knew every trick in the book, and a druid who revered nature but distrusted unnatural fungi. They heard rumors that a cult had started operating in the city's sewers. People had gone missing, and the sewer entrances were covered in mold. The city guards were afraid to descend because those who did returned covered in fungal growths. The group decided to investigate. They found that the sewers were indeed overgrown with fungus that glowed faintly. Mycelial threads hung from the ceilings like cobwebs. Every sound they made echoed. They were attacked by creatures that looked like zombies but were covered in mushrooms. These things fought as though they felt no pain. They tried to breathe spores into the adventurers' faces. The group fought their way through, casting spells to ward off the spores, burning fungal growths as they went. At the heart of the sewer, they discovered a ritual circle where several cultists were chanting in a language that sounded like wet wood creaking. The cultists wore robes decorated with mushrooms, and they had mushrooms growing out of their own bodies. They were attempting to open a rift to Shadakla. The group fought them, but halfway through, the cultists began to convulse. Their mushrooms blossomed. From these blooms emerged smaller demons, myconid-like creatures with sharp teeth. The adventurers barely managed to close the rift. They sealed it with a combination of holy water and fire, but not before glimpsing a landscape of mushrooms and hearing a voice whisper, "We are coming." This was only the beginning. In other lands, heroes found themselves contending with spores and madness. In the mountains of Sable Reach, a company of dwarves tunneled too deep and discovered a cavern filled with luminous blue mushrooms. They started to hallucinate. Some of them saw visions of Demogorgon, promising them untold riches if they devoted themselves to him. Others saw Zuggtmoy, who beckoned them to join her in eternal union. The dwarves turned on each other, and their blood spilled into the Mycelium. When adventurers arrived to rescue them, they found the dwarves' bodies sprouting mushrooms. The only way to free them was to burn the entire cavern. In the deserts of Riam, a tiefling sorcerer uncovered a scroll that spoke of a way to bind Demogorgon's essence. She attempted the ritual, hoping to gain power over the Prince of Demons. Instead, she opened a portal and became possessed by Hethradia, one of Demogorgon's heads. For days, she walked the desert, her eyes glowing with orange light, preaching the glory of chaos. She attracted followers who thought she was a prophet. They did not realize they were being prepared for sacrifice. Her spells destabilized reality, and cracks formed in the sky. Through these cracks, spores began to fall. It was only through the intervention of a paladin of a god of justice that she was stopped. Her followers were freed from their trance, but the cracks remained for weeks, allowing more spores to infiltrate the world. Throughout these incidents, one pattern emerged. Mortals who meddled with Demogorgon or Zuggtmoy ended up as pawns in their game. Some deliberately sought their favor, hoping to gain power. Others accidentally inhaled spores or became infected by madness. A few resisted and fought back, becoming heroes in their own right. It was these heroes who would, in time, turn the tide of the war, not by defeating Demogorgon or Zuggtmoy outright, but by limiting their influence on the material plane and closing the rifts that fed them. The war reached a turning point when Demogorgon decided to take the fight directly to Zuggtmoy's core. He had tried infiltration. He had tried sending madness through rifts. Now he sought to break through her defenses by force of will. He gathered a great host of demons, Balers, Mariliths, Vroks, Hezrus, Glabrezu, and monstrous beasts unique to his lair. He used his magic to bind them into a semblance of order. Amel and Hethradaya agreed, for once, that they needed to focus on a single plan. Amel would guide the army through cunning. Hethradaya would lead the charge. This army marched into Shadakla, hacking and burning as it went. Zuggtmoy, warned by her spores, called upon Juiblex for assistance. The Faceless Lord sent rivers of ooze that flowed through the fungal forests, dissolving Demogorgon's demons. Where ooze met fungus, new creatures were born, slimy fungal beasts that slithered and slurped, leaving trails of spores that combined with acid. In the center of the lair, where a giant mushroom tower rose above all others, Demogorgon confronted Zuggtmoy. Their battle was monumental. Demogorgon's tentacles lashed out, tearing through fungal flesh. He bit into her, tasting rot and sweetness. Zuggtmoy responded by encasing his limbs in mycelium, trying to root him to the ground. When her spores entered his mouths, his heads each experienced different hallucinations. Amel saw himself as a king of a world covered in rot, with Zuggtmoy at his side. Hethradaya saw himself cutting off Amael's head and taking the throne for himself. Both visions distracted him. Zuggtmoy attempted to pierce his mind with whispers of unity. "We could be one," she said. "Your madness and my patience. We could consume the abyss together." For a moment, Demogorgon hesitated. In that moment, Juiblex attempted to engulf them both, seeing an opportunity to consume two powerful entities. A river of slime surged forward, swallowing part of the battlefield. Zuggtmoy screamed and released a burst of spores that fused with the ooze, creating an abomination that neither she nor Juiblex could control. Demogorgon cut his way free and retreated. Zuggtmoy fought to regain control of her domain. Juiblex withdrew, leaving behind a scar on the landscape. This battle did not end the war. It did, however, change its nature. Demogorgon realized that direct confrontation might not be the solution. Zuggtmoy realized that she could not trust her allies completely. Juiblex had shown that in the abyss, alliances are fleeting. From this point on, the war became one of attrition. Demogorgon used cunning and targeted strikes. He sent assassins, cambions and succubi, to kill key Myconid leaders. He planted seeds of doubt within Zuggtmoy's cults, spreading rumors that she was going to betray them to Juiblex. He began to corrupt mycelial networks with bits of his own essence, making mushrooms that sprouted with faces that resembled his. These mushrooms whispered his promises. Zuggtmoy adapted by becoming more insular. She pulled her domain into itself, thickening the fungal growths and making them even more labyrinthine. She sent spores into the gaping maw that caused Demogorgon's beasts to turn on each other. She created fungal golems, hulking creatures made of mushroom stems, to guard her core. She also reached out to mortals more aggressively. She allowed some of her cultists to retain their minds longer, giving them the impression of free will so they would recruit others. During this phase, One of the most interesting episodes involved a small band of heroes who entered Shadakla to rescue a friend infected by spores. They carried with them a relic blessed by a god of purity, which they believed could cleanse any corruption. They fought their way through myconids, slime creatures, and mutated demons. When they reached their friend, they found that her body was covered in fungus. She was barely alive. The relic began to glow, burning away the fungus. But as the fungus burned, it whispered. It told them secrets about Demogorgon, about his two heads, about his hatred for each other. It offered them power if they would only throw the relic away. The heroes almost did. In the end, they resisted. They saved their friend, but they left with knowledge they could not forget. They knew that the war was larger than they could imagine, and they realized they might be used as pieces in it. Over time, the war between Demogorgon and Zuggtmoy spilled beyond their domains. It affected the material plane, the Shadowfell, and even the Feywild. Fungal growths appeared in areas of the Feywild, threatening its ancient forests. The Fey, a proud and territorial people, responded by hunting the fungal invaders. Dryads and treants united to burn away patches of creeping mold. In the Shadowfell, ghosts found themselves entangled in mycelial threads, unable to move on to the afterlife. They whispered that a fungal queen sought to claim their souls. On the material plane, organizations dedicated to opposing demons took notice. The Harpers, the Lord's Alliance, the Order of the Gauntlet, and others formed a coalition to investigate the spread of spores and the rise of madness cults. They dispatched teams to close rifts, burn fungal growths, and track down demonic cultists. They learned that simply destroying mushrooms was not enough. They had to locate the spore's source. They had to travel into the abyss, something few of them were prepared to do. One of the most significant mortal responses came from a conclave of wizards who created a magical barrier called the Veil of Sanity. This barrier, erected around major cities, prevented the spores of Zuggtmoy from crossing. It also dampened the influence of Demogorgon's madness. The barrier was fueled by the combined will of hundreds of mages. It required constant maintenance. When the barrier faltered, as it did during a festival when several mages were drunk and failed to concentrate, spores slipped through. People danced in the streets, inhaling spores hidden in confetti. They started to see visions of mushrooms growing out of their food. Panic ensued, and the barrier was quickly restored. But the incident showed that the veil was not infallible. As the war dragged on, both Demogorgon and Zuggtmoy suffered setbacks. Demogorgon found that the mind rot he unleashed also affected his own mind. He began to see his domain decaying. He began to hear whispers, not just from his own heads, but from mushrooms that sprouted in his throne room. These mushrooms told him to give up. They told him to combine with Zuggtmoy. Hethrodire wanted to rip them out. Armel wanted to listen. Their internal argument intensified. Sometimes Demogorgon would roar and cast spells at nothing, trying to silence voices that only he could hear. Zuggtmoy, on the other hand, discovered that parts of her domain had been irreversibly tainted by Demogorgon's madness. Mushrooms grew in strange shapes. They sang songs that were dissonant. They spread unpredictably. She realized she could not control everything. She felt something akin to empathy when she thought about Demogorgon's two heads. She wondered what it would be like to share her mind. She decided she did not want that fate. She hardened her resolve to remain singular, to remain one mind controlling many bodies. Ublex, who had once been Zuggtmoy's ally, withdrew to his own lair. He felt that both sides were ignoring him, so he consumed what he could and waited. Other demon lords watched from afar, occasionally sending agents to support one side or the other when it suited their agendas. Grazist, ever the schemer, attempted to play both sides, whispering to Demogorgon that Zuggtmoy had insulted him, while also telling Zuggtmoy that Demogorgon planned to enslave her. His manipulations added layers of distrust to an already complex conflict. Wars in the Abyss do not end with treaties. They end when one side is consumed or when both sides can no longer muster the energy to continue. The war between Demogorgon and Zuggtmoy eventually reached a stalemate. The gaping maw remained overrun with pockets of fungus, but Demogorgon's demons learned to live with them, burning them when they got too thick. Shadakla retained scars of madness, but Zuggtmoy embraced them, creating new species of fungus that thrived on chaos. Demogorgon never fully rid his domain of Zuggtmoy's influence. In corners of his jungles, mushrooms grow that glow a faint green at night. Those who wander too close hear whispers that sound like both his voices. These mushrooms are said to grant visions of the future, but they also risk infecting the mind with Zuggtmoy's patience. Demogorgon now uses them as a test. He sends his followers to meditate among them. Those who return sane are considered strong. Those who succumb are executed or enslaved. Zuggtmoy, likewise, never completely removed the madness from her fungus. She finds that some species have begun to act with a will of their own, sprouting where she did not instruct them to. She occasionally hears laughter that is not hers echoing through the mycelial network. She tries to suppress it, but it sometimes slips through. It reminds her of Armel's cunning and Hethrodya's rage. She keeps a patch of these insane mushrooms in a place she calls the Chamber of Delusions. She goes there when she needs to remember the danger of hubris. On the material plane, the rifts closed one by one, thanks to the efforts of heroes and organizations. The veil of sanity remained, though it required constant vigilance. In the corners of the world, cults to both Demogorgon and Zuggtmoy still exist. They whisper secrets of tentacles and mushrooms, hoping to reopen the portals and bring their masters forth. Adventurers who stumble upon these cults find themselves drawn into a conflict that never truly ends. The war left behind lessons. It showed that even in the Abyss, where chaos reigns supreme, there are patterns. It revealed that patience can be as deadly as rage. It taught that minds can be weapons, and it reminded mortals that messing with demon lords is never wise. The lure of power, whether promised by madness or rot, is always a trap. Evil does not always appear in the form of an obvious monster. Sometimes it appears as a whisper in a dream, as a tiny spore riding the wind, as a voice in the back of your head telling you that you deserve more. Demogorgon and Zuggtmoy represent different sides of the same coin. Demogorgon is the embodiment of immediate chaos, loud, brash, unpredictable, and destructive. Zuggtmoy is the embodiment of slow decay, patient, subtle, pervasive, and ultimately transformative. Their war is not just a battle for territory. It is a battle between different philosophies of evil. For adventurers, their conflict is an opportunity to test their mettle. It challenges them to resist not only physical threats, but psychological ones. It forces them to decide who they are when faced with temptation. Do they want power at the cost of their souls? Do they value stability at the cost of freedom? Are they willing to let the world rot so that they can gain knowledge? Or will they fight to preserve what they believe in, even if it means resisting offers that seem too good to be true? The war between Demogorgon and Zuggtmoy also serves as a reminder that heroes are not always the center of every story. Sometimes they are peripheral players in conflicts that span planes. Their actions matter, but they do not always see the whole picture. They close a rift here, destroy a cult there, rescue a friend, recover an artifact, and move on. Meanwhile, the demon lords continue their schemes, sometimes deterred, sometimes delayed, but rarely destroyed. It is also a cautionary tale for those who think they can control demons. The scholar who thought he could bargain with Demogorgon became a puppet. The sorcerer who tried to harness Demogorgon's power was consumed. The cultists who served Zuggtmoy lost themselves to her spores. Even heroes who fight for good risk their sanity. When one peers into the abyss peers back. And when it does, it might send a spore onto the wind or whisper a promise into a dream. Though the war has settled into an uneasy quiet, the echoes of Demogorgon and Zuggtmoy's conflict continue. Bards sing of a swamp where mushrooms whisper secrets of the future. Wizards study fungal patterns, searching for traces of madness hidden within. Priests pray for protection against spores. Children tell stories of a two-headed monster who comes at night to take away naughty kids, and of a mushroom queen who lures you with sweets and never lets you leave. In some parts of the world, those stories are more than just tales. Deep in the jungles of the gaping moor, an adventurer who loses her way might stumble onto a grove of mushrooms that pulse with faint light. If she listens, she might hear a voice say, "We have seen you in our dreams. We know what you desire. Let us show you." In that moment, she stands at a crossroads. Will she succumb to the whisper of rot? Or will she run back to the path she came from, knowing that curiosity can be deadly? Similarly, within the fungal forests of Shadakla, if a demon pauses to rest beneath a giant mushroom, it might hear a different voice. This voice might say, "You are not alone. Even the mighty can doubt. Embrace your other side. Embrace the chaos within." And if it listens, it might realize that the voice is not Zuggtmoy's, nor is it its own. It is a fragment of madness left behind by Demogorgon, seeping through the mycelial network. These echoes illustrate that no war ends neatly. There are always lingering influences, remnants of conflict, and scars that do not heal. They also remind us that the battle between rot and madness is not confined to faraway planes. It exists inside each of us. We all have the potential to be consumed by ambition, to be tempted by power, to let our minds spiral out of control. We must constantly choose between patience and rashness, between slow growth and sudden change, between the allure of decay and the thrill of chaos. As we conclude this tale, we reflect on the balance of disorder. The abyss is a place of unending chaos, yet even within it, there is a sort of equilibrium. For every Demogorgon who seeks to destroy, there is a Zuggtmoy who seeks to transform. For every outburst of rage, there is a slow, creeping rot. These forces check each other, ensuring that no single philosophy of evil prevails for long. It is in their conflict that stories are born, and heroes are forged. The war between Demogorgon and Zuggtmoy reminds us that evil is multifaceted. It is not just a monster to be slain. It is a thought, a whisper, a pattern. It can be loud and violent or quiet and patient. It can inspire fear or lull you into complacency. It can be an enemy to fight or a temptation to resist. Understanding this complexity is the first step to combating it. We hope that by exploring this war, you have gained a deeper appreciation for the rich lore of Dungeons and Dragons, for the depth of its worlds, and for the moral and philosophical questions it poses. We hope you are inspired to tell your own stories, whether they involve heroes, fighting fungal horrors, villains making deals with demons, or everyday people trying to keep their minds sane in a world full of chaos. And above all, we hope you remember that in any battle against evil, the greatest weapon you have is your will.